Mark Cavendish crashes out of his last ever Tour de France. How did it happen in this hilly sprint stage? From Libourne to Limoges, would it be one for someone like Valentin Madouas? Would there be a strong breakaway? With an uphill finish of 4% for 700 metres, maybe Trek Segafredo would try and put pressure on the pure sprinters like Jakobsen and Dylan Groenewegen. It's a hard old 200 Ks and hot conditions too. So when the flag dropped, Quickstep obviously thought it was too hard for Jakobsen. But Trek were trying to get in the break with Pedersen initiating. Very, very surprising to me in what was the best stage, the best finish for him so far. And Movistar, FDJ wanted to be in, EF wanted to be in, Trek tried again with Kirsch, and then Bahrain with Fred Wright, who'd be good in a breakaway here. But eventually a break did go with Quickstep and Delaplace from Arkea and Turgis from Total. So not that strong a breakaway. It got blocked up. And they got a nice gap of 4 minutes. It got kept pretty tight because you got to respect de Klerk. Everyone was able to go have a wee and chill out for a little bit. And because Binny, it also suits him this finish, the last couple of hills, Intermarché went on the front. Coquard didn't put Cofidis forward yet, and Alpecin wanted Philipsen to have a chance. But would Cav be able to make this finish? It is hard. It's got some, 1K, 5% climbs. At the intermediate sprint, though, in what was a sleepy start to the stage after the break went, thought it's a regulation sprint, and then Astana tried to keep going on with it. They joined forces with Alpecin de Koenig and caught Jumbo-Visma on the back foot because Wout not been sprinting at these. And so with Bini, Coquard, no Pedersen, but Ricard, Philipsen and Cav in there, it was going somewhere until Philipsen and Cav sort of dropped back and said this ain't worth it because Jumbo are chasing. So Cav's off the back, his teammates are pacing, but it goes nowhere. Coquard's trying to bridge it up to it himself. Bit of a waste of energy in the end from everyone, because Jumbo have to chase with Dylan van Baarle, and they've tipped their hand now. Because they weren't just happy for that group to go away, they clearly wanted Wout van Aert to have a chance to win today's stage. Otherwise, they would have just let that breakaway go, and it's not their problem if they're just going for GC, but they weren't. So in the hot conditions, Van Baarle gets to work initially with Alpecin, and then as the hills come in with about 70 Ks to go, that's when Intermarché, Trek and Cofidis start to get to work. Because you look at Trek's team, Simmons is banged up from a previous crash, but Juanpe and Ciccone, they're more climbers, and so they're best used on the hills to bring back the gap to the breakaway, rather than making them push on the flat, which they're not as well suited to, 62 kilo guys against de Klerk. So Cofidis had the same idea with Perez, and that also has the indirect effect of making the overall stage harder on a Jakobsen or a Groenewegen, which benefits Mads Pedersen, who's got very, very good fitness for a sprinter. But you can't see, there is, in the top of this screen, someone's overlapped wheels or braked or dropped their chain or some problem, because you see Poggy leaning on his teammate, they're braking very quickly or freewheeling, trying not to chop themselves, and this has a ricochet effect down the bunch, and everyone's drinking. Look at the Bora rider, and then look at this Intermarché rider, who had his bit on he had that bit on his mouth and dropped it and threw it quickly, and there's other riders too, and if you were drinking and chilling, and this happens, look at everybody leaning on each other, and you don't have two hands to control and brake, there can be a crash because you look at everyone leaning on each other, and that's exactly what happens. Unfortunately, we didn't see it in the overhead, but then we look at the back and one rider's gone down hard, and unfortunately it's Mark Cavendish, sunglasses on the ground. When everyone was drinking, tries to get up, he tries to put pressure and lift off with his right arm, and he can't, which means immediately probably collarbone done. He knows what that means. And that's unfortunately his Tour de France over. So we don't actually see his crash except from far away in this shot. But it looks like overlap of wheels, domino effect from that issue at the front of the peloton, and people were drinking behind, because this was just after that climb as well on the descent. So everyone's trying to refuel, and Cav goes down. Your boy's boy Kev gets the green whistle ready. And this is not what we wanted to see. The race goes on. It waits for nobody, as Marc Madiot said it. But this is Cavendish out of what is supposed to be his last ever Tour de France. He said he's retiring at the end of this year, and he nearly won yesterday. Were it not for his gear slipping, he might have won that stage and taken the record for himself. So just devastating for Cavendish, and also for Astana, now left without their sort of main focal point for the team. But as I said, the race continues. Asgreen jumps away with 37 Ks to go, with 140 the gap to his teammate de Klerk. He never gets more than about 20 seconds on the peloton. Quickstep tell de Klerk to stop pulling. He's angry about that because it's obviously pointless what Asgreen is doing. That makes the break lose another 30 seconds, Asgreen goes nowhere in his chasse patate and gets brought back anyway, and then de Klerk is like, oh, you can go pace on the front again. So that was very strange and pointless from Quickstep, and de Klerk was rightly annoyed. But here's the lead-outs. We've got first climb done. You can barely see them because they're big ring 40 kph climbs, and then it narrows, and here's the last categorized climb of the day. 1.5 Ks, 4%, big right-hand descent into it, and then a left-hander, but not that narrow. And Jumbo-Visma tried to do what they did on Calais last year or in Paris-Nice last year too, split it with Van Hooydonk. And you see, they nearly get what they wanted. The Intermarché rider pulls out, leaves a gap, and if the rider behind him can't close the gap, suddenly someone like Tadej Pogačar could be left on a gap, and the draft matters a lot at 40 kilometers an hour here, but it just wasn't steep enough, and Van Hooydonk pulled a little bit too long. Christoph gets told by Jonas Vingegaard to move to the front, but by this point you see Groenewegen moving up. You see Pogačar making up positions, same with Fred Wright and co, and Pedersen's not losing positions. The Boist is there easily. The climb just wasn't hard enough as those other stages Jumbo have tried before, but there are counterattacks over the top. Campenaerts, Yates crashes, he'd lose 47 seconds, and apparently Steph Kras said a spectators came up, but Schjelmoser, hats off to him and Trek. He's not had probably the results on GC that he'd want to so far. Schjelmoser goes to the front, rips this, and he just allows Pedersen and Kirsch and Sturven to maintain good position. But look at Van Aert, deeper in the field. Pogačar, they're fighting for Philipsen and Laporte's wheel. So Pogačar really getting amongst it, wanting to get a result out of this stage with Puy de Dôme tomorrow, the bonus seconds. But yeah, Trek, hats off to them. Yes, they didn't have the best final lead out, but saving energy in the last 3Ks is arguably is also very, very important. Laporte goes early. Remember, this is uphill, so he goes at 375, and he gets swamped. Van Aert gets jumped by Pedersen on one side and Van der Poel on the other, and he has no space to go around Christophe Laporte with both those riders beating him to the spot. He has to basically stop pedaling. That's his sprint over as he nearly chops himself, and Pedersen unbelievably strong. This is why I was surprised he tried to get in the break, because even though Philipsen got the best lead out and was in the wheels for longer, Pedersen just smokes him. 20 seconds uphill. Not many people can beat Mads Pedersen in that sort of finish, and he gets the job done. Wins another Tour de France stage, this year from the bunch. Last year it was from the breakaway. And yeah, really, really impressive from him, and happy for their new sponsor that they get rewarded in the first week. Winning ahead of Philipsen, then Van Aert third, came late fast. Groenewegen, Eckhoff, Coquard, De Bois, Tiller, Strong, Pogačar still rounds out the top 10. Here's what Mads Pedersen had to say after the stage.
We didn't know this morning if it would be a breakaway or a sprint, but it really looked like that the sprinter teams didn't want it to be a breakaway day, so we stayed calm, and man, the boys did a perfect lead out today, and even with the long sprint, I still had the legs to finish it off. So that's really nice to win a stage faster than stage 13.
But big GC day tomorrow. Vingegaard in the yellow jersey, 25 seconds ahead of Pogačar. Still no gaps really, except for Yates dropping a few positions from that crash. Puy de Dôme, big watts per kilo test. Who do you got? Who do you think wins? Who do you think drops who? Maybe Hindley actually does really well. He was good on Fedora on a similar climb. But until that recap, ciao.